Let's get straight to it, folks. 8 survival skills they definitely didn't teach you in war. Number 8. Eat everything. You know that feeling when you open the fridge and your brain goes, is there anything actually edible left? Now crank that level of despair up by 50 times, subtract the fridge, and subtract all the food. That's how people survived back in the day during wartime. When you're so hungry your guts are doing the Macarena, humans start seeing the world through a very culinary lens. Tree bark? Chewy. Boiled leather? Tastes like desperation-flavored chewing gum. Weeds? Just eat them. You might not have them tomorrow. Sounds like a joke, but eating anything and everything is a brutally real survival tactic. Biologically speaking, your body is way better at converting random stuff into energy than you'd think. Collagen in animal skin turns into gelatin if you cook it long enough. Certain grasses or roots have enough carbs to keep you from becoming a permanent resident of the dirt. The cruel irony is, normally you're so picky you won't touch a vegetable. But when war comes knocking, suddenly you're a Michelin-starred jungle chef, ready to try anything a buffalo would typically turn its nose up at. The psychology of survival is also fascinating. Once the body goes into just stay alive mode, your brain disables your inner food critic. The ill factor? Gone. Replaced by, do I have enough calories to run tomorrow? You no longer care if it's tasty, only if it helps you stand up in the morning. And as you sit there chewing on a squishy piece of boiled leather, you realize wartime cuisine has no delicious option, only survive another day flavor. It's like eating, but the only goal is to ignore your taste buds and complete the mission of continued existence. Number 7. Stand sleeping. Imagine watching a movie so tired you're nodding off and about to faceplant. Now imagine that, but you're standing and you absolutely cannot fall over. That's the luxurious sleep experience of countless soldiers and civilians during the most intense periods of war. Stand sleeping sounds like something out of a comic book, but it's a real deal survival skill. The kind you never want to acquire but circumstances force you to unlock. Physiologically speaking, there's something called microsleep. You grab a few seconds of shut-eye while remaining upright, like a wobbly lamppost that just refuses to collapse. Your brain operates in a half-awake, half-dreaming state. The part controlling your muscles stays on, while your conscious processing unit takes a short lunch break. Folks back then leveraged this to stay alert when lying down wasn't an option. A slight sound was enough to jolt the entire system awake, like someone hitting the reset button directly in your brain. Wartime psychology further reinforces this bizarre skill. When you know a deep 5-minute sleep could mean never waking up, your brain keeps a protective part of itself constantly vigilant. It's like sleeping on a bus but still waking up precisely at your stop. The only difference is if you miss your stop, the price is just a tad higher. Stand sleeping isn't an art. It's the desperate contortion of a body so exhausted it would accept anything, as long as it lives. A truly miserable posture, yet it saved thousands of lives. And if you've ever complained about an uncomfortable folding chair, remember people once slept standing to avoid becoming walking target practice. Number 6. Invisibility. Alright, you're playing hide and seek, but it's the hardcore version where if you're found, you don't just lose, you might not play ever again. And instead of hiding behind a door or under a bed, people back then chose to roll around in muck, plaster dirt on their faces, and stand as still as a rusty pole. Sounds ridiculous, but this was camouflage technology before technology existed. The mechanism of natural invisibility is actually very simple: blend into the environment. When the darkness and smoke of war drastically reduce human visibility, any object with an unclear shape easily slips past the human eye's radar. The brain prefers familiar shapes: a head, a body, movement. When you're standing still, covered in mud, in low light, your body shape virtually disappears from the enemy brain's priority list. Their eyes report, just an ugly bush, and they move on. Psychologically, darkness makes people imagine more incorrect things than you'd think. When you're stressed, your brain likes to add information to protect you, but sometimes it misses things right in front of your face. Ancient warriors exploited this gap perfectly. As long as you didn't cough, twitch, or sneeze, because sneezing with a face full of mud is just a tragedy, your survival rate drastically increases. The funniest part is that in war, you, a human being, have to turn yourself into literal terrain. If you wore a name tag, enemy soldiers might think you were a misplaced feng shui rock. But for people back then, this tactic wasn't just camouflage, it was a form of instinct. When every advantage is stripped away, you become your surroundings to survive. In war, sometimes survival is just a matter of how long you can stand still without losing a limb. Number 5. Turn animals into shippers. If you want to text someone now, you just open your phone, tap a few times, and it's done. But imagine living in ancient wartime with no signal, no phones, not even decent paper. So humans invented a strange but effective way to transmit messages, using animals as shippers. Pigeons are the most famous, but not every place had pigeons just chilling. Some areas used dogs, goats, or even small creatures like weasels or rabbits to carry messages through dangerous zones. You can imagine a soldier tying a small message around the rabbit's leg and hoping it runs in the right direction. It was the wartime version of sending an email and praying it doesn't go to spam. From a biological perspective, animals have better navigation, memory of paths, or reflexive ability to run back to familiar places than humans do in a crisis. Pigeons, especially, have a natural magnetic field in their brains, helping them navigate like a feathered GPS. The psychology of ancient people using animals for communication was also unique. They placed life or death trust in a creature that couldn't read. But that's the beauty of it. Animals aren't swayed by fear, don't overreact to cannon fire or shouts, and sometimes they run faster than human messengers. You could say this was an era where express delivery meant the bird flew the right way and wasn't cooked for stew mid-flight. A combination of luck, natural instinct, and admirable desperation. Number 4. Primitive warming. Imagine you're in the mountains in winter, the wind biting your face like it wants to gnaw it off. But you have no blanket, no heater, not even firewood. The only thing you have is your shivering body and a few equally cold comrades. So, people back then used a survival method that sounds simple but was surprisingly effective. Huddled together for warmth. A tactic so common even wild animals do it. But in war, it became a true savior. Science explains this quite reasonably. The human body constantly radiates heat, and when many people lie close together, that heat accumulates into a living furnace. The temperature stays more stable, your heart doesn't have to beat excessively fast, and you avoid dangerous hypothermia. The only problem is psychological. Normally, you wouldn't want anyone too close to you, but when war and cold gnaw you from all sides, all personal space boundaries are temporarily erased. The funny thing is, this method makes you and your comrades look like a giant human dumpling, wrapped tightly to keep warm. And if someone in the group snores loudly, my condolences. You've just found the most annoying background music in the worst living conditions. Emotionally, this closeness also creates a strange sense of security. When you know you're not shivering alone in the dark, your brain reduces stress hormones, helping you sleep despite the surrounding dangers. It's a kind of combination of camaraderie and desperation, just enough to survive bone-chilling nights. In short, this is when you don't need a heater because you are the heater, and so are your buddies. Number 3. Deceive enemies with sound. You know that feeling when you're watching a horror movie and suddenly you hear a clunk and your mind starts imagining all sorts of crazy things? People in ancient wars exploited that very effect to survive. When they lacked enough soldiers or weapons, they used the cheapest yet most effective tool: fake sounds. Imagine you're hiding behind a bush. The enemy is approaching and all you have is a vivid imagination and a few rocks. So you throw a rock into another bush or hit a tree trunk with a stick to create a loud echo. In the darkness and tension, the enemy's brain will conjure a threat larger than reality. They might even think there's a whole ambush squad. Psychology explains this clearly. Humans process sound in dangerous conditions by exaggerating it. When you're scared, your brain reduces analysis time and prioritizes reaction. Hear a strange sound, run or retreat. This natural programming flaw helped our ancestors survive when facing wild beasts, and ancient warriors in war simply exploited it with extreme skill. This sound tactic had enough variations, from faking drum beats to simulate large troop numbers to creating fake footsteps by tying rocks to a string and dragging them. Some guerrilla groups even imitated animal sounds to deceive opponents. Try to imagine patrolling at night and hearing a strange meow coming from the bushes, only to realize it's a psychological trap. The irony is that war makes the smallest sound a weapon, and in many cases, what defeated the enemy wasn't bows and arrows or swords, but their own frantic imagination. Number 2. Play dead. Imagine you're so tired you just want to lie down and sleep for a very long time. Now imagine lying down in the middle of a battlefield, pretending to be unconscious so your enemies pass you by. Sounds like a dark comedy movie script, but ancient people truly used the fake corpse tactic to survive the most dangerous situations. From a psychological survival standpoint, when the body enters an overly stressed state, your brain often activates the freeze option. Ignore everything, stand still, don't react. Humans simply took this ability to the highest level, playing dead. Because enemies usually prioritize attacking moving targets, targets capable of resisting, or targets that are breathing loudly. But you, lying motionless, muscles relaxed and breathing as shallowly as possible, look no different than a forgotten human rug. The enemy's brain then operates on a very simple logic. Useless now, move on. Sounds easy, but it's incredibly difficult. You need to keep your entire body perfectly still. No tremors, no twitches, no spasms. Even as your heart pounds like a festival drum, just one little movement could change the outcome. But it was precisely the extreme terror that helped some people achieve this, as if the body self-disabled itself to survive. The irony lies in the fact that this is a tactic you cannot practice. You can't just play fake death with your friends and set a timer. This skill only activates when your brain realizes that if you don't do it, it's game over. And when the war passed, many people survived by lying still like props on a brutal stage. Sometimes survival isn't about running fast or being strong, but being as motionless as a forgotten rice cake after Tet. Number 1. Dig tunnels. You might imagine living in a tiny studio apartment. Now think of a version with no windows, no modern toilet, and entirely underground. That's the kind of shelter millions of ancient people in war had to create by hand, with hose, or even with wooden bowls. Digging tunnels wasn't just about hiding from bombs and bullets, it was an art of survival based on natural understanding. Deep earth maintains stable temperatures, keeping you from getting too hot during the day and not too cold at night. At the same time, it's a natural layer of armor against shrapnel, rockets, or anything war throws at you. Psychologically, an earth tunnel is like a cocoon, making people feel safer. When chaos reigns above, explosions, screams, clashing weapons, being in a small, dark, enclosed space makes your brain reduce panic levels. It's like pulling a blanket over your head to feel safe, except this blanket weighs several tons of earth. Digging tunnels also forced people to cooperate. One digs, one scoops, one stands guard. That cooperation created a sense of purpose, and that purpose was crystal clear: stay alive. Once inside, people even turned tunnels into temporary living spaces, hanging oil lamps, drying clothes, even eating and sleeping there for weeks. It was the most primitive version of a safe room, but for ancient people, it was hope. This tactic was smart enough, simple enough, and primitive enough to endure for thousands of years, and it worked. A tiny tunnel deep within the earth could protect you from a storm of metal and fire. More accurately, in the chaos of war, sometimes the best way to survive is to disappear completely from sight. Ultimately, the history of war is also a history of desperate creativity, and it proves one thing: when pushed to the absolute limit, humans would rather do the weirdest things than die. That's all for today, folks. A new week starts tomorrow. May your new week be as bright and explosive as, well, bombs and bullets. And don't forget to like and subscribe, you magnificent survivors. Bye-bye.